Hello guys, I am Pankaj Kumar Sahu. My roll number is 460. Currently I am pursuing BCom Honors from Shahid Bhagat Singh College, and today I am going to discuss the topic furnishing of detail under GST Return 1 under section 37. So let's get started. So guys, here we comes with a very important and related topic with the GST return 1 is outward supply. So under GST return 1, what we mentioned is nothing but the details of related with the outward supply. So what do we mean by outward supply, and how we define the outward supply under GST section 37. So here is the definition of outward supply under GST 37, section 37. So the term outward supply in relation to a taxable person which is liable to a pay tax by means of supply of goods or service, whether sale, transfer, barter, exchange, license, rental, lease or disposal or any other mode made or agreed to be made by such person in the course of business. So the guys, here is the definition, but we can relate it with a very basic concept that the outward supply is nothing but it is the relation with the supply of goods and services by means of sale, transfer, barter, exchange, these kind of a mode. So we can relate it with the outward supply. Here are some relevant aspects as regard to outward supply under section 37. So if we are going to discuss about the GST return 1, then it should be necessary to discuss about these 6 topics related with the GST return 1. The first one is person liable to furnish the details of outward supply. The person who is liable to furnish the details of outward supply, and the second one is form to be used under GST. Third one is due date of submission of GST return 1, and the fourth one is kind of details to be furnished in GST return 1, and the fifth one is contents of GST return 1, and the sixth and the last one is amendment and correction rectification of errors under GST return 1. So the first question comes in our mind is, who is liable to furnish the detail of outward supply under GST return 1? So here is the answer given in the section 37 subsection 1. Let's find out the answer of this question. So our return of outward supply under section 37 subsection 1 should be furnished by every registered person including casual registered person except the following person given under below. So the first person who is not liable to file the GST return 1 is input service distributor, non-residence taxable person, person paying tax under composite scheme, person deducting tax at source, person collecting tax at source, a supplier of online information and database access or retrieval service. So here comes the second question in our mind. Which form is to be used for the filing of GST return 1? So the details of outward supply of goods or service under section 37 shall be furnished in the form GST return 1, which you can find out under the online portal, and such details can be furnished through the common portal in online mode, either directly or from the notified facilitator center which are there to file the GST return on behalf of the supplier of the goods and services. So the next question would be, what is the due date of submission of GST return 1? So let's find out the answer of this question. So the GST return 1 for a particular month is filed on or before the 10th day of the immediately preceding the month. For example, GST return 1 of December 2017 can be filed anytime on or before 10th January 2018. So now next question which will come to your mind is there any punishment for the registered taxable person who did not file their GST return 1 by the due date? So yes, there is a punishment or a penalty for the persons who did not file their GST return 1 by the due date. So it can be filed on or before 16th of the month. However, as per section 47, a late fee of rupees 100 per day will be levied, during which the failure continues, subject to maximum amount of 5,000 to the persons who did not file the return. The due date of filing GST return may be extended by the Commissioner of State (GST) and Commissioner of UT/GST, which means Union Territory Goods and Services Tax. Here is a very important aspects of GST return 1 is kind of detail to be furnished under GST return 1. So, as per section 37, the details of outward supply of goods and services furnished in form GST return 1 shall include the following. First one is invoice was detail, second one is consolidated details, and the third one is details of debit and credit note if issued to the recipients of the goods and services. So under the invoice wise details, we need to mention the whether the supply is interstate, intrastate to a registered person, or whether the supply is interstate supply. Invoice value should is greater than 2.5 lakh to unregistered person. And under the consolidated details, we need to mention whether the supply is intrastate supply made to unregistered person for each rate of taxes to unregistered person, and whether the supply is intrastate where invoice value is up to 2 lakh, not greater than 2 lakh to unregistered persons. And the third one is you know that it's a details of debit and credit note if issued to the any recipients of goods and services. So guys, in this slide we are going to discuss the content of GST return 1. So there are two information we needed to file the GST return 1. So first one is general details. The details of registered person who is liable to pay the tax, like GSTIN, legal name, trade name, turnover in financial year and month of filing the return, etc. These kind of details are the general details we needed to file the GST return. And the second one is other details, like details related to the supplies of goods and services, like taxable outward supply to registered person, taxable outward interstate supplies to unregistered person value is more than 2.5 lakh, and details of zero rated supply and deemed exports, and exempted and non-GST supplies, amendment to taxable outward supply, and document issued during the tax period. So guys, here is the two kind of information we needed to file the GST return. General details are related with the details of the suppliers and recipients, and the other details is related with the supplies of goods and services. So guys, now we are going to discuss about the communication of detail of GST return 1 to recipient of supply. Our first step towards this is filing of GST return. The return for outward supply is filed in the form GST return 1, and the second step of filing communication of details is details of GST return 1 communicated to recipients. The detail of GST return 1 are communicated and made available electronically to the respective recipient. It is made available through the common portal after the 10th day of the succeeding month. Such information is reflected in Part A of the following: Part A of Form GST Return 2A or Part A of Form GST Return 4A. And the third step towards this is action by recipient. The recipient is provided an opportunity to add, correct and delete such details in two-way communication process. So the recipient review GST return 2A and files the details of his inward supply in the form GST return 2 after making such modification, if any. It is done after 10th day but on or before 15th day of the month succeeding the relevant month. And the third step towards this is modification made available to supplier. The details of inward supply added corrected, deleted by the recipient in Form GST Return 2, Form GST Return 4 for person opted for our composite scheme are made available to the supplier electronically in Form GST Return 1 through the common portal which is available online. Okay, and the next step is action by the supplier. The supplier can accept or reject the modification made by the recipient between the 15th day and the 17th day of the month succeeding the relevant month. If he is agree with the supplier, then he will made the send his consent to the supplier. If he disagree with the supplier, then he is also send intimation to the supplier. And the next step is when the supplier accept the modification. If the supplier accept the modification, GST return 1 filed by him gets amended accordingly. It will amended accordingly if they file the GST return 1. And the next step is effect of GST return 3 on GST return 3. Such amendment details of outward supply are reflected in Form GST return 3 to be filed by the supplier on or before 20th day of the month succeeding a relevant month. So these are the steps which are relevant in the communication of details of GST return 1 to the recipient of supply. If any of these steps is missing from this, then the communication of details of GST return 1 to the supply is not fully established between them. Now here is our last slides where we are going to discuss about the amendments in details of output supply. If there is any mistake in the GST return 1 etc. in the part of recipient or supplier, then we can make changes in these details with regard to the provisions of GST return 1 under section 37. So the supplier can make changes and amendments in the particular furnished in GST return 1 filed by him for the prior period if he agrees to mismatch the reports communicated to him by the system every month after the proceeding of the return. So he can make changes after filing the GST return if he finds that the details of the GST return 1 is mismatched with the details of the supplies. Yeah, so these kind of changes can be happen with regard to the provisions of GST return under section 37, and the rectification made in the tax period which such error or omission is noticed and supplier pays the tax and interest in case of short payment. I hope guys you got the basic relevant information in this video. Thanks for watching the video.